The wolves were dying. Aria's hands trembled as she dragged the fifth massive body through her doorway, silver blood staining the snow crimson. The blizzard screamed like a wounded beast, and somewhere in that howling darkness, 20 more wolves lay freezing. She was an omega, wolfless, cursed, the weakest of the weak. But her grandmother's voice echoed in her dying mind. Strength isn't in claws, child. It's in choosing kindness when the world chooses cruelty. So Aria chose. One by one, she pulled them inside her tiny cottage. Wolves larger than horses, with eyes like liquid silver and fur that shimmered with an otherworldly glow. Her muscles screamed. Her lungs burned. Frostbite blackened her fingers. But she didn't stop. The storm had come 3 days ago, the worst in a century. The village elders whispered it was punishment from the old gods, sent because an abomination lived among them. They meant her. Born without a wolf in a world where your beast determined your worth, Aria had been cast out at 16, left to rot in this forgotten corner of the forbidden forest. She'd learned to survive alone. As the last wolf, the largest, with a crescent moon mark blazing on its forehead, crossed her threshold, something impossible happened. The strange runes on Aria's arms, marks she'd hidden beneath rags her entire life, began to glow with pale moonlight. Cottage shook. The lead wolf's eyes snapped open, locked onto hers, and she saw something that made her blood freeze colder than the blizzard outside. Intelligence, recognition, power. These weren't ordinary wolves. Aria stumbled backward as all 25 wolves began to heal before her eyes, wounds closing, frost melting from their fur. The largest rose on trembling legs, and when it looked at her, she heard a voice, deep, ancient, and terrifyingly male, echo in her mind. You saved us. Now, little Omega, you belong to us. Outside, through the dying storm, Aria heard it. The sound of 1,000 paws marching through snow. An army was coming. Dawn broke like a blade across the frozen wasteland. Aria pressed against her cottage window, heart hammering. The army of wolves surrounded her home in perfect formation. Hundreds of them, each bearing scars of countless battles. And walking among them were men. Warriors in ancient black armor that seemed carved from shadow itself, bearing a sigil she'd only seen in forbidden history books. The blood moon crest. Impossible, she whispered. They've been extinct for 500 years. The largest wolf, the one with the crescent mark, stood and began to shift. Bones cracked and reformed. Fur receded into bronze skin. In seconds, a man stood where the wolf had been, and Aria forgot how to breathe. He was massive. 7 feet of pure muscle and contained violence, with eyes that burned gold and hair black as a raven's wing. A crown of twisted silver roots rested on his head, pulsing with dark magic. When he spoke, the earth trembled. I am Kiran Bloodmoon, king of the first pack, lord of the Obsidian Citadel, and keeper of the old laws. His voice was gravel and silk. You saved my Praetorian guard. You invoked the ancient law of life debt. Aria's grandmother had told her stories of the life debt, a bond older than kingdoms, unbreakable as death itself. I didn't know, she started. Ignorance changes nothing. Kiran's eyes raked over her cottage, her threadbare clothes, the omega scent that marked her as worthless. Something flickered in his expression. Confusion. Disgust. An omega. You're an omega, and you did what my entire kingdom could not. The other wolves had shifted now. 25 warriors, each radiating lethal power. They knelt before her in the snow. The debt must be honored, Kiran continued, stepping closer. You will come to the Obsidian Citadel until its terms are fulfilled. I'm not going anywhere with you. His laugh was bitter. You think you have a choice. I think I survived 16 years alone in this forest. I'll survive without you. Kiran's eyes flashed pure gold. His wolf surged forward, and the power that radiated from him sent every living thing for miles into instinctive submission. Every living thing except Aria. She stood tall, met his gaze, and felt the runes on her skin burn hotter. For the first time in 5 centuries, the Lycan King looked uncertain. What are you? He whispered. Behind him, one of his warriors gasped, pointing at Aria's glowing arms. "My king! Those marks. Those are the moon priestess seals." "But that's impossible," Kieran finished, his face going pale. "The moon priestesses were slaughtered 300 years ago. Every last one." Aria looked down at her arms, at the ancient runes now blazing like captured stars. "Apparently," she said quietly, "not every last one." The forest exploded with the sound of a horn, 3 short blasts. Kieran's expression turned deadly. "We're under attack. Now." Shadow creatures poured from the trees, things with too many teeth and eyes that burned with void fire, and they were all coming straight for Aria. Kieran moved like lightning made flesh. His claws tore through 3 shadow creatures before Aria could blink. The Praetorian Guard formed a circle around her, a wall of snarling fury and flashing fangs. But the creatures kept coming. Dozens, then hundreds, pouring from the forest like a plague. "They're drawn to her," one warrior shouted. "The power, it's calling them." Aria felt it too. The runes on her skin were singing, vibrating with a frequency that made her teeth ache. The shadow creatures weren't just attacking. They were hunting. "Get her inside," Kieran roared, ripping a creature's head clean off. "Protect the Omega at all costs." 2 warriors grabbed Aria, dragging her toward the cottage. She fought them. "I won't hide while you die for me." "You don't understand," the warrior with kind eyes said urgently. "If you die, we all die. The life-dead binds us. Your death is ours." Kieran appeared at her side, blood splattered across his face, breathing hard. Up close, she saw the scars, hundreds of them marking every inch of exposed skin. Stories of survival written in flesh. "Listen to me, Omega." His voice was surprisingly gentle despite the chaos. "I don't know what you are or why the void hunts you, but those marks make you either our salvation or our destruction. Until I know which, you're under my protection. I never asked for this. Neither did I." He grabbed her face, forcing her to meet his burning gaze. "But the old laws don't care what we want. You saved my pack. Now I save you. That's how this works." A shadow creature broke through the guard line, lunging for Aria's throat. Kieran didn't think. He threw himself between them, taking claws across his chest that should have killed him. He fell, gasping, blood pooling beneath him. Something inside Aria shattered. The runes exploded with light, pure white, consuming. She screamed, and the sound wasn't human. It was ancient and terrible and right. The light poured from her like a tidal wave, disintegrating every shadow creature within 100 yards. When the light faded, Aria collapsed beside Kieran. His eyes were wide with shock and something else. Wonder. "Impossible," he whispered, touching her face with a bloodied hand. "You're not just moon priestess bloodline. You're her. The first daughter. The sealed one. What are you talking about?" But Kieran's eyes were already closing. "Take her to the Citadel. Lock her in my chambers. Tell no one what she is. Tell them she's mine. I'm not yours." Aria shouted, but he was unconscious. The warrior with kind eyes, Marcus, she'd later learn, knelt beside her. "He just gave you the highest protection possible. In claiming you as his, he's declared war on anyone who'd harm you." "But I don't even know him." Marcus smiled grimly. "You will. The life debt. That was just the beginning. What you two just did, saving each other at the cost of everything, that invokes something far older, far more dangerous." "What?" "The mate bond, little Omega. Whether you like it or not, your soul just chose the Lycan King." Aria looked at Kieran's unconscious face, felt something warm and terrifying blooming in her chest, and realized her entire life had just ended. Or maybe it had just begun. Behind them, in the ruins of the forest, a figure in a crimson cloak watched from the shadows. Lady Ravenna smiled, her perfect face twisting with hatred. "So," she purred, The king has found his weakness at last. She turned to the darkness. Tell the Void Coven. Tell them the Sealed One lives. And tell them, I want her destroyed. The Obsidian Citadel rose from the mountain like a dragon's fang, black, jagged, and utterly magnificent. Aria had never seen anything like it. Towers that pierced the clouds, walls carved with runes that pulsed with power, and everywhere wolves. They lined the battlements, prowled the courtyards, watched her arrival with eyes that glowed in the darkness. Welcome to your new prison, Marcus said quietly as their carriage stopped. Kieran had been unconscious for 3 days. Healing, they said, from wounds that should have killed him. Aria had been kept under guard, forbidden from seeing him, treated like dangerous cargo. Now, as she stepped into the Citadel's grand hall, she understood why. The court was waiting. Hundreds of Lycans in elaborate dress, their power making the air thick and suffocating. Alphas, every single one of them, and they looked at her like she was dirt beneath their boots. An Omega, someone whispered. The king brought an Omega to the Obsidian Citadel? She must be his whore. Pathetic. He's lost his mind. Aria lifted her chin, refusing to cower. She'd survived worse than their judgment. Then she appeared. Lady Ravenna descended the grand staircase like death dressed in silk. She was perfect, inhumanly beautiful with hair like spilled wine and eyes like poisoned honey. The betrothed, the future queen. And she looked at Aria like she wanted to peel her skin off slowly. So, Ravenna purred, circling Aria like a predator. This is the little Omega who's captured our kings. Attention. She leaned close, her breath hot against Aria's ear. Did you spread your legs in that cottage, little wolf? Is that how you saved him? The court laughed. Rage flooded Aria's veins, but before she could respond, a voice like thunder shook the hall. Enough. Kieran stood at the top of the staircase, and even injured, he was magnificent. Power radiated from him in waves, making every wolf in the hall bare their throat in submission. Every wolf except Ravenna. And Aria. His eyes found hers, and something passed between them. Recognition, heat, and a promise. Aria of the Forbidden Forest, he announced. His voice carrying to every corner. Savior of the Praetorian Guard, invoker of the life debt, and guest of honor in my home. Any who disrespect her, disrespect me. The silence was deafening. Ravenna's smile turned venomous. Guest, my love. Surely you mean prisoner. Or have you forgotten the oracle's prophecy? The wolfless savior will bring either glory or destruction to the first pack. Tell me, which do you think this Omega will bring? Kieran descended the stairs, never breaking eye contact with Aria. When he reached her, he did the unthinkable. He knelt. The entire court gasped. I haven't forgotten the prophecy, Kieran said quietly, taking Aria's hand. But I also haven't forgotten that this Omega destroyed a void army with a wave of her hand while I lay dying. So perhaps, Lady Ravenna, the oracle wasn't warning us about destruction. Perhaps she was telling us salvation wears unexpected faces. He stood, still holding Aria's hand. The Omega stays. Under my personal protection. In my personal chambers. And if anyone has a problem with that. His eyes flashed gold. His wolf surged forward. They can challenge me for the throne. No one moved. No one dared. But as Kieran led Aria away, she caught Ravenna's expression. Pure murderous hatred. And Aria knew. Her real nightmare was just beginning. You want me to what? Aria stared at the Elder Council like they'd lost their minds. Behind them, the gauntlet of fangs waited. A massive arena carved into the mountain's heart, stained with centuries of blood. The law is clear, Elder Morag said coldly. An Omega residing in the Citadel must prove worth through the trials of the Forsaken. 3 trials. Survive all 3 and you may remain. Fail even 1. She dies, Ravenna finished, her smile pure poison. Such a pity. But tradition is tradition. Kieran slammed his fist on the table, cracking the ancient stone. This is madness. She's under my protection. And we respect that, Your Majesty, Morag interrupted smoothly. Which is why we're giving her a chance. Normally, Omegas are simply executed upon entry. Consider this mercy. It wasn't mercy. It was assassination dressed in law. Aria looked at the arena, at the 3 alpha warriors already circling inside, each one massive, scarred and eager for blood. Then she looked at Kieran, saw the helpless rage in his eyes and made her choice. I accept. Aria, no. I accept, she repeated firmly. Because I'm tired of being called weak. Tired of being called worthless. So let's settle this now. The court erupted in excited whispers. An Omega volunteering for death. This would be entertaining. Marcus gripped her shoulder. You can't shift. You have no claws. No fangs. How will you? I'll figure it out. She smiled grimly. I always do. The first alpha, a brute named Calder, charged the moment she entered the arena. Aria didn't run. She dove toward him, sliding beneath his massive frame and grabbing a discarded chain from the arena floor. As he turned, confused, she whipped the chain around his ankle and pulled. 300 pounds of alpha warrior crashed face first into stone. The crowd went silent. Aria didn't wait. She used his momentary shock to wrap the chain around his throat, not to kill but to control. When he tried to shift, she yanked harder, cutting off his air. Yield, she hissed. Or pass out. Your choice. Calder's eyes bulged with humiliation and rage, but finally he tapped the ground. Submission. The crowd exploded. An Omega had just defeated an alpha warrior without shifting. Impossible. Unthinkable. The second warrior attacked immediately, giving her no rest. Aria's body screamed with exhaustion, but her mind was razor-sharp. She'd studied them while Calder attacked, noticed the slight favor of the second warrior's left leg. An old injury never fully healed. She targeted it ruthlessly. Using speed and terrain, she led him into the arena's pit traps, designed to test warriors' awareness. He fell. He didn't. 2 down. The third warrior, a female alpha named Syrah, was different. Smart. Patient. She watched Aria with cold calculation. You're clever, little Omega, Syrah called. But cleverness only takes you so far. She was right. Aria was bleeding, exhausted, and out of tricks. So she did something desperate. She let her hands glow. The runes flared to life, and Syrah's eyes widened with recognition and fear. Ancient instinct warred with warrior's pride, and in that moment of hesitation, Aria struck. Not with power. With words. You were an Omega once too, Aria said quietly. I can smell it. Beneath the alpha pheromones you wear like armor. You clawed your way up from nothing, and now you serve a court that would have killed you if they knew. Syrah's face went white. How did you? Because I see you. Aria lowered her glowing hands. You don't have to do this. We don't have to be enemies. For a moment, one beautiful, impossible moment, Syrah's expression softened. Then Ravenna's voice rang out. Kill her, Syrah, or I'll expose what you are to the entire court. Syrah's face hardened. He charged. But Aria had won anyway. Because Kieran had heard every word. And as Aria dodged Syrah's attack, as her runes exploded with power she couldn't control, as the arena filled with blinding light, the Lycan King realized the Omega he'd saved was dismantling his kingdom's lies one truth at a time. And he wasn't sure if that terrified or thrilled him. When the light faded, Syrah lay unconscious. Aria stood victorious. And the court, for the first time in history, knelt before an Omega. But in the shadows Ravenna smiled. Perfect, she whispered. Let them love you, little Omega. It'll make destroying you so much sweeter. Aria didn't remember collapsing. She woke in silk sheets that smelled like pine and thunder. Kieran's scent. His chambers. His bed. Her body was on fire. The runes covered her now. Not just her arms but spreading across her chest, her back, her face. They pulsed with a rhythm that matched her heartbeat, and each pulse sent agony lancing through her veins. She's dying. Marcus's voice, tight with worry. The power is consuming her from the inside. The seal is breaking too fast. Then we stop it. Kieran's voice, rough with an emotion Aria couldn't name. You can't stop this, my king. This is the moon goddess's will. The seal was placed for a reason. I don't care about the goddess's will. Crash. Something breaking. Find a way to save her. That's an order. There is one way. Silence. Then, tell me. Your blood. King's blood carries the first wolf's essence. It might stabilize her long enough for the seal to break properly instead of shattering. But my king. Sharing blood creates a bond. An unbreakable one. You'd be tied to her for life. If she dies, you die. If she's corrupted, you're corrupted. And given your existing betrothal to Lady Ravenna. Do it. But your majesty. Do it. Aria felt Kieran's presence before she saw him. Heat and power and something wild. His wrist pressed against her lips, and she smelled copper and forest rain. Drink, he commanded softly. Fight, little Omega. Don't you dare give up now. She didn't want to. But her body betrayed her, and she drank. His blood was power. It flooded her system like liquid lightning, and suddenly she wasn't in the bed anymore. She was standing in moonlight in a place between worlds. A woman stood before her, tall, ethereal, with hair made of starlight and eyes like twin moons. Hello, daughter, the woman said. I've waited so long to meet you. Who are you? I am Selene, first wolf, mother of your bloodline, and the one who sealed your power before you were born. Aria's mind reeled. Why? Because you are my last daughter, and the world would have torn you apart to claim your power. So I hid you. Made you appear wolfless, weak, forgotten. But I always knew, when the time was right, when you found the one strong enough to stand beside you. Kieran, Selene smiled. The Sun King to your Moon Queen, just as it was always meant to be. But child, you must understand, your power will reshape this world. Some will worship you, others will try to destroy you. And the greatest threat isn't external. It's within. What do you mean? Your power can create or annihilate, save or slaughter. The choice will be yours alone. And when that moment comes, when you must decide between love and duty, between mercy and justice, remember this. True strength isn't in the power you wield. It's in knowing when not to wield it. The vision shattered. Aria gasped awake to find Kieran holding her. His wrist still bleeding, his eyes wide with shock. Your eyes, he whispered. There. Silver. Pure silver. Aria touched her face, felt the runes settling into her skin like tattoos, felt power thrumming through every cell. And she felt something else. Connection. A golden thread tying her soul to Kieran's. What did you do? She breathed. I saved you. He cupped her face gently. Or damned us both. I'm not sure which. The bond. I know. You're engaged to Ravenna. I don't love Ravenna. It's a political arrangement. But you. He leaned closer, his forehead touching hers. You're something I never expected. Never wanted. And now I can't imagine existing without. Aria's heart hammered. We barely know each other. I know you faced death for my wolves. I know you stood before my court and didn't break. I know when I thought you might die, something in me shattered. His thumb traced her jaw. So tell me, little Omega, if we barely know each other, why does this feel like I've been searching for you my entire life? She didn't have an answer. The door exploded inward. Ravenna stood there, flanked by guards, her beautiful face twisted with rage. You bonded with her. You bonded with an Omega while still pledged to me. Kieran stood, placing himself between Aria and his betrothed. Ravenna, this is treason. Against me. Against your kingdom. Against the Bloodthorn Alliance. Her eyes glowed red. Not gold, not natural. Red like void fire. You've just started a war, my king. She turned, her voice carrying through the citadel. By ancient law, I invoke the right of challenge. The Omega or me. Only one can live. Let the gods decide who's worthy to stand beside the Lycan King. The citadel's war horn sounded. 3 long blasts that meant formal challenge accepted. Kieran's face went pale. You can't. Oh, but I can. Ravenna smiled, and Aria saw what Kieran had been too blind to see. Madness, and something darker. 3 days, Omega. Then you face me in the arena of judgment. And I promise you. Ravenna's form flickered, just for a moment, revealing something monstrous beneath her beauty. You'll beg for death long before I grant it. The arena of judgment hadn't been used in 200 years. Now, as Aria stood at its center, she understood why. This wasn't just an arena. It was a colosseum, carved from black stone that drank light, with walls covered in names. Every wolf who died here, their blood feeding the ancient wards. 50,000 Lycans filled the seats, their collective power making the air vibrate. And across from Aria, Ravenna smiled. I'm going to enjoy this, the lady purred, circling. She'd shed her gowns for leather armor that looked forged from shadow itself. Tell me, little Omega, has our king bedded you yet? Or does he still come to my chambers after pretending to care about you? Aria didn't take the bait. She'd spent 3 days training with the Praetorian Guard, learning to channel her new power without destroying everything around her. But Ravenna had trained her entire life. This was going to hurt. The horn sounded. The challenge began. Ravenna shifted, not into a wolf but into something else. Something with too many teeth and eyes that burned red. Void corruption. She'd infected herself with the very darkness that had attacked the forest. How? Kieran roared from his throne. That's forbidden magic. Forbidden. Ravenna laughed, her voice distorted. No, my love. It's power. The kind your precious Omega could never give you. She struck like lightning. Aria barely dodged, the claws missing her throat by inches. She retaliated with a blast of moonlight, but Ravenna absorbed it, feeding on the power. Yes, Ravenna shrieked. Feed me, little priestess. Let me taste the moon's power before I devour you whole. The fight was brutal. Aria landed hits that should have killed, but Ravenna kept healing, kept attacking, kept growing stronger. Then Aria saw it, the mark on Ravenna's neck. A void sigil, pulsing like a second heart. You're not just corrupted, Aria gasped. You're possessed. You're a vessel. Ravenna's smile widened impossibly. For the Shadow King. Your mate's dear, departed father who isn't quite as dead as everyone believes. The arena erupted in chaos. Kieran lunged from his throne, but void chains erupted from the ground, binding him, binding the Praetorian Guard, binding every warrior who tried to intervene. This was never about jealousy, the Shadow King said through Ravenna's mouth. His voice ancient and terrible. This was about drawing out the sealed one. And you came so willingly, little daughter of the moon. He raised Ravenna's hand, and void energy gathered, enough to level the citadel. Your power will make me a god. Your death will break your mate. And your kingdom will fall before my new army. The Void Coven has already infiltrated your precious court. Half your nobles serve me now. As if on cue, dozens of Lycans in the crowd began to shift, their eyes turning red, their forms warping. It was a massacre. Aria watched wolves she'd been living among for weeks turn on each other, watched blood spray across ancient stone, watched Kieran straining against chains that burned his flesh. And something inside her snapped. Not in rage. In clarity. You want my power, she said quietly. Then take it. Aria no. Kieran shouted. But Aria was done being afraid. She'd faced death in a frozen forest. She'd faced judgment in this very arena. She'd faced the truth of what she was and hadn't broken. She wasn't going to break now. She opened herself fully to the power, not fighting it, not controlling it, but becoming it. The runes exploded across her entire body. Her eyes became twin moons. And when she shifted for the first time, every Lycan in the arena fell to their knees in instinctive worship. She wasn't a wolf. She was the first wolf reborn. Massive, white as starlight, with a coat that shimmered like galaxies and eyes that held the weight of eternity. The Shadow King, wearing Ravenna's face, actually looked afraid. "Impossible," he whispered. "The seal should have taken centuries to break." "Love," Aria said, her voice echoing with divine power, "is stronger than any seal." She moved, not to kill, to purify. Her jaws closed around Ravenna's throat, and instead of tearing, she pulled, drawing the void corruption out like poison from a wound. The Shadow King screamed, his essence burning in her moonlight, his form unraveling. "This isn't over," he shrieked. "I'll return. No," Aria said simply. "You won't." She released the full force of her power, and every void-corrupted Lycan in the arena was cleansed. The darkness burned away, their true selves restored, including Ravenna. The lady collapsed, gasping, her eyes their natural gold again. She looked up at Aria with horror and shame. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry. He came to me months ago, promised me power, promised me I could finally be enough for a king, and I..." "Shoo!" Aria shifted back to human form, knelt beside her. "You were used. Manipulated. That's not the same as choosing evil. But I wanted you dead. And now you don't." Aria smiled gently. "That's what matters." Around them the arena was silent. 50,000 Lycans stared at the Omega who just saved them all. Then as one they howled. Not in challenge. In acceptance. In celebration. The sealed one had awakened. The prophecy was fulfilled. Kieran broke free of the chains, shifted, and ran to her. When he shifted back, he pulled her into his arms like she was oxygen itself. "Don't ever scare me like that again," he breathed against her hair. "No promises." She pulled back to look at him. "Your father is my problem to end. But not today." He cupped her face. "Today I claim you. Before every witness. Before the old gods. Before fate itself." He dropped to one knee. "Aria, Omega of the Forbidden Forest, daughter of the first wolf, savior of my soul, will you stand beside me? Not as my subject, not as my guest, but as my equal. My mate. My queen." Tears streamed down Aria's face. "Yes." The arena exploded with celebration. But in the shadows of the mountain, deep in a place where no light had touched for centuries, the true Shadow King opened eyes that burned like dying stars, and smiled. How sweet. The hero and his bride. A shame they won't survive what's coming next. The third trial came at midnight under a blood moon. Aria stood at the entrance to the heart of the mountain, a cave that spiraled down into the earth's molten core, where legend said the first wolf spirit was imprisoned. "No one who enters returns unchanged," the oracle warned, her milky eyes seeing things beyond mortal comprehension. "Some emerge as gods, others as monsters. Most don't emerge at all." "I have to do this," Aria said. The bond with Kieran pulsed warm and steady in her chest, but even his strength couldn't help her here. "Your father said he'd return. I need to be strong enough to face him when he does." Kieran grabbed her hand. "Then I'm coming with you. The trial is meant for one. The trial can go to hell. Where you go I go. We're bonded now. Your fight is my fight." His eyes blazed with determination. "Besides, someone needs to drag your stubborn ass back out if you get yourself killed." Despite everything, Aria laughed. "Romantic. I try." They descended together, the Praetorian Guard standing vigil at the entrance. Down, down, down through tunnels that grew hotter with each step, past bones of ancient wolves who'd tried this trial and failed. Then the tunnel opened into a vast chamber, and Aria's breath caught. It was beautiful. Crystals covered every surface, glowing with inner light. At the chamber's center, a pool of liquid silver, moonlight made tangible. And above it, trapped in crystal, a massive white wolf that looked exactly like Aria's shifted form. The first wolf, Kieran breathed. She's real. The moment Aria stepped toward the pool, the wolf's eyes opened. At last, a voice echoed Celine's voice. My daughter returns to claim her inheritance. The crystal shattered. The wolf emerged, and suddenly there were two white wolves in the chamber, one ancient and wise, one young and uncertain. To complete the unsealing, you must face 3 truths, 3 tests of worthiness, 3 moments where you choose who you truly are. The chamber shifted. Reality bent. Suddenly, Aria stood in her childhood home, watching her younger self be cast out by her pack. The alpha who exiled her stood before her now, cowering. First truth, vengeance or mercy. Kill him. Make him pay for every year of suffering. Or choose forgiveness. Aria's claws extended. It would be so easy, so satisfying. But Kieran's hand touched her shoulder. Don't let them make you into what they feared you'd become. Aria took a breath and shifted back. I forgive you, not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace. The alpha dissolved. The scene changed. Now she stood over a burning village while void creatures attacked. She could save them, but it would drain her power, leave her vulnerable. Second truth, sacrifice or survival. Save them and risk everything. Or preserve yourself for greater battles ahead. This isn't even a choice, Aria said, and dove into the flames. She pulled survivors from burning homes. She fought creatures with her bare hands. She gave until she had nothing left, and then she gave more. When the last villager was safe, she collapsed. Kieran caught her. You magnificent, self-destructive idiot. Love you too, she gasped. The scene changed one final time. Now Kieran stood before her, but wrong. His eyes were void red, his body corrupted. Third truth, love or duty. He's been infected, corrupted beyond saving. To protect the kingdom, to stop the void from using him, you must kill your mate. Or doom the world by choosing love. Aria stared at corrupted Kieran, felt the bond between them screaming in agony. No, she whispered. I refuse. You would doom the world for one man. I would find another way. Aria shouted at the first wolf. You want to test me? Fine. But I don't accept that love and duty are always in opposition. I don't accept that saving everyone means sacrificing the one person who matters most. There's always another way. We just have to be brave enough to find it. She turned to corrupted Kieran, took his twisted face in her hands. If you're corrupted, I'll purify you. If you're lost, I'll find you. If you're dying, I'll give you my life. But I will never give up on you. That's my choice. That's who I am. She kissed him. And the corruption burned away. The chamber exploded with light. The first wolf threw back her head and howled, a sound of pure joy. Yes, that is the truth I needed you to understand. Power without love is tyranny. Love without power is helpless. But power and love together, that changes everything. The first wolf walked to Aria, pressed their foreheads together. You are ready. Take my power, daughter. Become what you were always meant to be. The bridge between old and new. The queen who chooses mercy but isn't afraid of war. The one who'll reshape this world with kindness as her weapon. The wolf dissolved into silver light, flooding into Aria's body. She screamed, not in pain but in transformation. When the light faded, Aria stood tall, every rune blazing, power radiating from her like a sun. Kieran stared in awe. You're complete, she finished. Finally complete. They emerged from the heart of the mountain hand in hand, and the Praetorian Guard fell to their knees. Because Aria didn't just look powerful, she looked divine. But as they walked back to the citadel, neither noticed the message carved into the tunnel wall by invisible claws. The Shadow King rises. War comes at dawn. They came at dawn, just as the message promised. Aria woke to horns screaming warnings, to the citadel shaking, to Kieran already armored and issuing commands. How many? She asked, joining him at the battlements. His face was grim. Thousands, maybe tens of thousands. The Shadow King didn't just survive. He's been building an army in the void for centuries. Aria looked out at the valley below and her blood ran cold. It was an ocean of darkness. Void creatures, corrupted Lycans, things that had never walked in sunlight, all marching toward the Obsidian Citadel with one purpose: destruction. "He wants me," Aria said quietly. "He wants to consume my power, become a god. If I surrender." "You finish that sentence and I'll throw you off this wall myself." Kieran gripped her shoulders. "We fight together or not at all. But your people are our people, and they're ready to fight for their queen." As if to prove it, the Praetorian Guard assembled below, all 25 warriors she'd saved in the blizzard, now her fiercest protectors. Behind them thousands more. The court that had mocked her now stood ready to die for her. The Shadow King's voice boomed across the valley, amplified by dark magic. "Daughter of the moon, come to me willingly and I'll spare your mate. Refuse, and I'll make you watch him die slowly." Kieran snarled. "I'd like to see him try." "He's bluffing," Marcus said, joining them. "He needs you alive to take your power. But he'll kill everyone else without hesitation." The first wave hit. The battle was chaos. Beautiful, terrible chaos. Aria fought alongside Kieran, their bond making them move like one being. Where he struck with claws, she followed with moonlight. Where she faltered, he defended. But there were too many. For every enemy they killed, 10 more appeared. The Citadel's forces were legendary, but even legends could be overwhelmed. Aria watched a young wolf, barely 18, get dragged down by void creatures. Watched Marcus take a spear through the shoulder defending her. Watched the Citadel's walls begin to crack. "This is my fault," she whispered. "He's here because of me." "He's here because he's a monster," Kieran corrected, blood streaking his face. "You didn't create him. You're just the only one powerful enough to stop him." "Then that's what I'll do." Before Kieran could stop her, Aria leaped from the battlements, shifted mid-air, and landed in the center of the enemy army. Alone. The Shadow King materialized before her, not possessing anyone now, but in his true form. Massive, twisted, a wolf made of living darkness with eyes like dead stars. "There she is," he purred. "My salvation. My ascension. Or your end," Aria countered. "You have one chance. Withdraw your army. Face me alone in single combat in the ancient ritual ground. Winner takes all." "Why would I agree to that when I can simply take what I want?" "Because I'll make it interesting." Aria's eyes blazed silver. "You win, you get my power and my life. But if I win, every soul you've corrupted is freed. Every darkness you've spread is cleansed. You don't just die, you're erased. No coming back. No second chances." The Shadow King considered, then smiled. "Agreed." Magic shimmered around them, an ancient pact, enforced by the old gods themselves. Unbreakable. "Aria, no." Kieran roared, but he couldn't reach her. The pact created a barrier between the armies, forcing single combat. The Shadow King circled her. "You're brave, I'll grant you that. But bravery won't save you from 500 years of accumulated power." "Maybe not," Aria said. "But love will." She felt it, the bond with Kieran glowing like a golden thread. The bonds with the Praetorian Guard. With Marcus. With every Lycan in that citadel who'd chosen to believe in an Omega when the world said she was worthless. She wasn't fighting alone. She was fighting for everyone. The Shadow King attacked, and reality itself seemed to scream. They fought across dimensions, through memory and nightmare, through void and moonlight. Each strike shook mountains. Each clash sent shockwaves across the realm. Aria was faster. The Shadow King was stronger. But Aria had something he didn't. "Oh, you know what your problem is," she gasped, blood streaming from a dozen wounds. "You've spent so long in darkness, you forgot what light feels like. Light is weakness." "No." Aria smiled, her runes blazing. "Light is choice. And I choose to believe that even you can be saved." She did the impossible. She opened herself to him, not to attack but to share. She showed him her memories, the cold of the forest, the loneliness of exile, the pain of being called worthless, and then, the warmth of saving 25 dying wolves, the pride of standing before a hostile court, the joy of being loved by a king who saw worth where others saw nothing. "You were like me once," she whispered. "Hurt, abandoned. You chose darkness because you thought it was strength. But it wasn't. It was just fear with a crown." For one moment, one beautiful, impossible moment, the Shadow King's eyes cleared. He saw what he'd become, what he'd lost, and he wept. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm so sorry." Then Aria's power consumed him, not violently but gently, like moonlight dissolving shadow. He didn't scream. He sighed, relieved, finally free. When the light faded, the void army was gone. Every corrupted soul restored. The Shadow King erased from existence. His 5 centuries of evil undone. Aria collapsed. Kieran caught her, cradling her like precious glass. "You did it. You did it." "We did it," she corrected, touching his face. "Always we." The barrier fell. 2 armies that had been enemies moments ago now stood confused, freed from corruption. And they all knelt, not in surrender, in respect, for the Omega who'd saved the world with compassion.
3 months later, Aria stood at the window of her chambers, their chambers, watching the sunrise paint the mountains gold. The citadel had been rebuilt, the void corruption purged, the court transformed from a nest of vipers to something resembling an actual community. It wasn't perfect. There were still those who grumbled about an Omega Queen, still political maneuvering and petty jealousies. But it was better. "You're thinking too loud," Kieran murmured, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "I can hear your thoughts spiraling from here. Just wondering if I'm doing this right. Being queen, leading, making choices that affect thousands of lives. You freed an entire realm from 5 centuries of darkness, using compassion as a weapon. I think you're doing fine." She turned in his arms, studying his face. The sharp angles had softened. The constant tension in his shoulders had eased. He smiled more now, laughed more, loved more openly. "I have a question," she said softly. "Anything. Are you happy?" Kieran cupped her face tenderly. "Aria, before you, I was surviving, going through motions, playing the role of king without understanding what I was king for. But you," he pressed his forehead to hers, "you showed me that strength isn't about being the most powerful. It's about choosing kindness even when cruelty would be easier. You made me want to be better, do better." He pulled back slightly. "So yes, little Omega, I'm happy. Deliriously, unexpectedly, completely happy." "Good." Aria took his hand and placed it on her stomach. "Because they're going to need a happy father." Kieran froze. Twins. The palace healer confirmed it yesterday. A boy and a girl, if the old ways of reading are accurate. For a moment, the mighty Lycan King just stared. Then he let out a whoop of joy so loud it probably woke half the citadel, swept her into his arms, and spun her around. "We're having pups. Kieran, put me down before you drop your airs." He did, but immediately knelt, pressing his ear to her still flat stomach. "Hello in there. This is your father. Just so you know, your mother is the most magnificent being in existence, and you're going to be spoiled absolutely rotten." Aria laughed, running her fingers through his hair. "They'll have your strength. And your compassion," he added, kissing her stomach gently. "They'll be perfect." A knock interrupted the moment. Marcus entered, trying and failing to hide his grin. "Sorry to interrupt, but the delegation from the Eastern Pax has arrived. They want to discuss the alliance." "Tell them we'll be there shortly," Kieran said, standing but keeping Aria's hand firmly in his. As they walked through the Citadel's halls, Aria noticed the changes. Omegas walking with their heads high, Alphas greeting them with respect instead of disdain. Children from all ranks playing together in the courtyards. The old hierarchies hadn't disappeared overnight. But they were crumbling, and in their place something new was growing. The throne room was packed. Representatives from every pack in the realm had come to witness the new era. Some with hope, others with skepticism. Aria and Kirin took their thrones, equal in height, equal in grandeur. A statement. "Let it be known," Kirin announced, his voice carrying to every corner, "that the old ways are dead. In this kingdom, worth is not determined by birth or rank, but by action and character. Omegas, betas, alphas, all are valued. All are protected. All are equal." And, Aria added, her voice gentle but unyielding, "any pack that wishes alliance with us must honor this principle. We will not ally with those who oppress the vulnerable. We will not support those who use power as a weapon against the weak." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some approving, some uncertain. The Eastern Alpha stepped forward, an ancient, scarred warrior who'd seen 100 battles. "You ask us to overturn traditions that have stood for millennia," he said. "To trust that your way is better than the way of our ancestors." "No," Aria corrected. "I'm not asking you to trust me. I'm asking you to trust them." She gestured to the Omegas in the room. "Give them a chance to prove their worth. If they fail, then you can say the old ways were right. But if they succeed, when they succeed, you'll have built something stronger than tradition. You'll have built justice." The Eastern Alpha studied her for a long moment. Then, slowly, he knelt. "I have lived a century and seen many queens, but never one who made me want to be better. You have my loyalty, Silver Queen, and my Pax Alliance." One by one, the other Alphas followed. Not out of fear, out of respect. As the sun set that evening, Aria stood on the balcony with Kirin, watching the 25 Praetorian wolves play in the courtyard below. They'd become more than guards. They'd become family. "Do you ever think about that night?" Kirin asked. "In the blizzard, when you chose to save 25 dying wolves instead of staying safe inside. Every day. Do you regret it?" Aria turned to him, this king who'd become her home, and smiled. "Not for a single second, because that night I didn't just save wolves. I saved myself. I proved I was more than what the world called me." "You saved me too," Kirin added quietly. "In every way that matters." She leaned into him, feeling the lives growing inside her, feeling the bond that tied them together, feeling the weight and wonder of the crown she'd never expected to wear. "So," he said, pressing a kiss to her temple, "ready to change the world, my queen?" Aria looked out at the realm stretching before them, a realm of possibility, of hope, of second chances for those the world had cast aside. "Already did," she replied. "Now we just get to watch it grow." In the distance, a wolf howled, not in challenge, but in celebration. And 25 wolves answered. The Omega's debt had been paid. The Silver Queen's reign had begun. And somewhere in the stars, Selene, the first wolf, smiled down at her daughter and whispered, "Well done, my brave girl. Well done."